If you've grown up with exercise being a staple of your weekly routine, it's highly likely that you've run into a muscle strain before at some point or another. In fact, it's been estimated that soft tissue lesions cause between 30 and 50% of all sports related injuries. As a result, today, we thought we'd discuss muscle tears and the recovery process. But first, as always, please take note of our disclaimer. A muscle strain is when the muscle fibers are overloaded to the point where they begin to tear. By and large, this happens through excessive eccentric contraction or overstretching of a muscle. Generally, the muscles most susceptible to this run over two joints, such as the gastrocnemius, the hamstrings, and the rectus femoris. This is because rather than only being stressed from one end, biarticular muscles can be stressed from both ends congruently. However, some monoarticular muscles, like the deltoid and the rotator cuff muscles, are more prone than others. Additionally, muscles with a higher amount of fast twitch muscle fibers are also more likely to be torn. There are three grades of muscle strains. Grade 1, or mild strains, are when only a tiny fraction of the fibers of a muscle are affected. Strength here isn't really affected, and one's overall mobility is still pretty much intact. Pain and tenderness are usually not felt immediately, but the next day instead. Grade 2, or moderate strains, is when around half of the muscle fibers are torn. Significant pain at this grade coincides with swelling and a loss of muscle strength. At this grade, you may be able to palpate a minor muscle defect or gap at the injury site. And then, grade 3 strains are when the muscle is completely torn, causing severe pain, swelling, and loss of function. Okay, now we know what muscle tears are and their different severities. How do they heal from a physiological standpoint? Muscle healing occurs in a three-phase process: destruction, repair, and remodeling. However, the second and last phases overlap and are closely related. In the destruction phase, the muscle fibers and tiny blood vessels tear and fill the area with blood. This allows the injury site to be sealed off from any external influence, since blood contains inflammatory cells which help with this, as well as initiate the recovery process. In the next phase, the repair phase, you guessed it, the body works on repairing the area. First, a cell called a macrophage helps break down dead tissue and dry blood, and then satellite cells arrive, which go on to become microblast cells to create new muscle fibers. At the same time, fibroblasts get called to work to produce connective tissue in the area that helps support tear repair. While these processes are being done, new blood cells and nerves are also being made. And then in the remodeling phase, the connective tissue and muscle fibers continue to regenerate and eventually orientate into scar tissue, which helps bring functional muscle capacity back to baseline with time. When it comes to the severest types of muscle tears, primarily grade 3 but also grade 2 in some instances, surgery most often will be required. But luckily for most grade 1 and grade 2 muscle tears, conservative treatment will be enough. You've probably heard of common acronyms used to guide muscle tear treatment, which have evolved throughout the years, like ICE, RICE, PRICE, and then on to POLICE. However, these are limited as they only consider the acute stage of tissue healing, without recommendations for the after stages. Consequently, in 2019, two researchers got together and put together new acronyms, PEACE and LOVE, to tackle this problem while also taking the opportunity to highlight the importance of patient education and consider psychosocial factors to enhance recovery. Further, they also put forward the potential harm that anti-inflammatory medication can cause for recovery. Of the two acronyms, PEACE focuses on the immediate care phase of a muscle strain. The P in PEACE stands for protect. Following an injury, it's recommended to unload and keep movement at a minimum of 1 to 3 days, depending on its severity, to lessen bleeding and the chance of worsening the problem. But too much rest isn't good either, since tissue strength and quality can be compromised. As such, the researchers advise that protection should stop once pain subsides to an appropriate level. The E in PEACE stands for elevate. This relates to bringing an injured limb higher than the heart in an effort to help get interstitial fluid out of tissues. The A in PEACE stands for avoid anti-inflammatory modalities. We always hear bad things about inflammation, but our bodies need various phases to help turn muscle fibers optimally. Because of this, the researchers argue that medications that stop our bodily physiological reaction to injury could adversely impact long-term tissue healing. The C in PEACE stands for compress. This is recommended as external mechanical pressure using taping or bandages assists in controlling edema and tissue bleeding. And lastly for PEACE, E means to educate. This refers to letting the patient know how important active therapy is for rehab. Also, education here relates to informing the patient about their diagnosis, answering any questions, and advising them on load management to limit overtreatment ultimately. Then, after a week or two, or as soon as symptoms allow, it's time to focus on the subsequent management of the muscle strain, the love part. But before we get into that, we want to point out that when facing muscle strains that aren't merely minor, we recommend doing so with a physiotherapist. This will enable you to progress in your recovery safely at an appropriate speed with the correct exercises and help minimize your risk for recurrent strains in the future. Anyway, going back to love. The L refers to load. For muscle strains, getting the right load amount helps to repair, remodel, and build tissue tolerance through mechanotransduction. Starting off, you want to do isometric exercise for the muscle concerned that involves pain-free 5 to 10 second holds for 10 repetitions, repeated 2 or 3 times daily. This can be done without weight in the beginning and then, when appropriate, with resistance. Then, when that can be done painlessly, one can move on to loaded isotonic exercise. The O in love is optimism. This is because, as you would expect, optimistic patient expectations are associated with better outcomes and prognosis. The V in love stands for vascularization. This is important as cardiovascular activity through both aerobic exercise and active mobilization helps to boost motivation and get more blood pumping to the injured structures, bringing more oxygen and nutrients to support repair. And lastly for love, we have E, which relates to exercise. Exercise has a wealth of evidence showing the benefits of reducing recurrent injuries down the line. Likewise, pain should be avoided here to ensure optimal repair following the acute phase of recovery, and exercises should be gradually progressed when needed. What have your experiences been with muscle tears? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. So, that has been our video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.